Right, so I'm on the farm, and bit of a problem. If you've been driving an excavator before, you'll know that every now and then you can run into a problem where the track comes off the wheel bearing here. See these spikes? They should be in line with the track, but it's come off. I'll show you from the top here. Well off, yeah? So not completely off, we're still attached on this. So that's how it should be. You can see it's coming outwards here, so I'm by myself. Usually to get this done, it's you know, 2 people is the job, but fuck it, I'm gonna try and do it myself, okay? So I've set up the camera here, got my jacket on the ground, and see if we can do this. Bit of a challenge. Filming it will also be a bit of a challenge. I don't have any tripod or anything with me, so let's just prop up my phone like so. Tell you what. Right, what you're gonna need is a crowbar or 2, and you want to use the bucket of the excavator. So here's the way the excavator is facing. Turn your bucket out and push up against it so that you're releasing some of the tension off the track, so that, you know, it's able to move a little bit. Down here, get down here. When the tracks are moving, don't be putting your fingers in there at all. You'll fucking lose a hand or a finger or whatever. You use your feet. Push up the tracks like that. Try and get them in line. Bit by bit, push the boat around. See? There we go. Don't know if you can see it, but I've just gone and pushed with my feet as I was turning the wheel clockwise. I pushed the track in with my feet to line up here, line up these spikes with this groove under here, and then you do it little bit by bit. You don't want to move the wheel too quickly. I was using a crowbar to push the drive lever. I'm out of breath, I don't know why, I've barely even done anything. But yeah, you can see here we're going to get this little catch. So we've caught these spikes in, they weren't in before, it was completely out this way, so I'll keep on doing that a little bit more, a little bit. Let's try it, okay? If I do this by myself, I'm really quite happy with myself, to be honest. If I manage this. That's stopping the drive track from coming on. Well, my boss has just arrived, so I've got some backup now. Just a bit more tension. Bossman's arrived. So I was basically there. Just gotta get it done, but there's a thing about old Japanese men, right? They're very, very, very stubborn and stuck in their ways. Like, maybe it's not just a case for Japanese men. Maybe it's just old men in general. They're extremely stubborn, but yeah, so I was literally going to get it on. I was halfway there, right? But we just need to release a bit more tension on the tracks because, one second, I'm just doing a cheeky little U-turn. Cheeky little U-turn. We need to release the tension on the tracks by loosening the grease bolt. Now, the way that these tracks are held in place is by a hydraulic system. So you've got two wheel bearings, the things with the spiky bits that look like sunshine. So they hold the tracks in place, and when you pump grease into the hydraulic system, it pushes both those wheels outwards, which then puts tension on the tracks. So by loosening that bolt, which is what we're going to do now, that releases some of that grease and releases the hydraulic pressure, releases that tension and squeezes the wheels back inwards, so that instead of both wheels being all the way out like that, they go in a little bit, and then you can imagine with the track being encased in those wheels, they become a little bit looser. So we're going to do that now. We just needed to get a spanner. He did bring a spanner, but they were too big. I think we need a 22mm spanner. You know, he only bought a 24 and a 27, and then he gets me to go and get the others. Yeah. Anyways, I'll check in a bit later. Let's see how we get on. Okay, so we got our spanner. I think this should be the correct one. We've got a 22mm and a 19mm. So if these aren't right, I'm gonna have to go back and get another one. But this should be fine. Should be fine. But yeah, the thing is with these Japanese men, right? You'll know this if you've lived in Japan, because Japan is very, very romanticized in the media these days. Extremely romanticized. You know, you see these influencers, these YouTubers, these TikTokers, whatnot, they all go to Japan and like, Japan's living in 2034 because they've got a fucking vending machine or whatever. But living here is a very different experience, you know, but that's the case with everywhere, you know. If you live in a country for long enough, you're going to pick out bad things about the place. That's inevitable, you know. No country is perfect, and neither is Japan, even though it gets painted out to be a perfect utopian society. Like, it's a great country to live in, don't get me wrong. I'm not shitting on Japan in any way possible. Like, I do love this country. I moved here 6 years ago, and I don't have any regrets, you know. I'm glad that I didn't stay in England, because my quality of life is just better here, you know. Right, here we are, we're back again. So I was thinking what I want to do with my YouTube channel. I thought, do I want to do vlogging? Do I want to do some kind of like my life in Japan videos? Because there's plenty of YouTubers out there, right? Got my spanner. Plenty of YouTubers that showcase their life a little bit in Japan, but they're all in the city. They're all in Tokyo, Osaka, whatever, and you don't really get a chance to see somebody who's living in Japan from a foreign perspective in, you know, the proper countryside. So I think that's what I want my channel to be a little bit about. I want it to showcase the realities of living in Japan, but from the countryside perspective, because it's lovely, and I do love my life out here. We've got our spanner. I'm going to loosen that grease bolt now. Yeah, see? There we go. Popped in. So when I loosen this bolt here, where the grease nipple is, all this grease came squirting out, and that releases the hydraulic tension on these wheel bearings, making them come further in, which loosens the track tension. So now we've got it back in, we're going to tighten this bolt back up, and then we're going to see that these wheel bearings move back out, putting tension back on the wheel, and then it should be fixed. Okay? Right, so we've tightened that bolt back up. See, now we've got the tracks set into the wheel bearing here. That's good, that side is good as well. But the track is still too loose at the minute because the wheel bearings are compacted. We need them to push back out again, and we do that by pumping more grease back into the hydraulic system, and then the hydraulics will push both these wheel bearings back out and put tension on this track. So let's see that in action. Okay, boss man's got the grease gun there. Okay. As I'm pushing more grease back in, it's pushing this wheel bearing out, and you can see the tension start to tighten on this track. Gosh, job done. So all it takes is one spanner to release the grease bearing on the hydraulics. It takes maybe a crowbar to tie the tracks back onto the wheel bearing. It takes your feet pushing it back onto the tracks whilst you're slowly rotating the wheel bearings. So job done, fixed. Nice one. Alright, job done. Boss man's back out on the excavator. I'm going to do some tractoring today. Got the first field to plough. There he is. So he's just repairing one of the rice fields. So over time you can get. I've got the tractor engine running now, so it might be a bit loud. So I'll make this part of the video quite short if I can. So yeah, sometimes a rice field they can get a bit lower in some points where there isn't enough soil, and so sometimes you have to put in a little bit more soil and then level it all out. It's quite a long job actually, especially if the soil that you're putting in isn't good soil. If you're a rice farmer, you'll know that rocks and stones can be your worst enemy sometimes in a rice field. Sorry. So yesterday, I literally, me and my boss, we spent all day just, mixing up all the dirt and getting out all these big rocks and chucking them out. It's a long flipping job, but it's an important job, because if you've got too many stones or rocks in your rice field, when it comes to planting season, every rock that the wheel then hits is going to throw the machine off like that, and then it makes the lines go out of place. So you really don't want many rocks. You want your nice, clean, good quality soil. But yeah, I love my boss. I really do. He's a really sweet man. He does look after me. He does care for me. But he's difficult to work with, because these Japanese men, they
they don't teach by teaching. I don't think they're not good natural leaders. They don't teach in a way that's easy to understand. Like, of course it's difficult for me because Japanese is my second language, and he speaks very, very, very local dialects, like really, like a lot of Japanese people won't be able to understand the way he speaks because, well, he's 84 years old and he's been smoking his whole life, so his voice is very, very scraggly, and that makes it harder. And he's an old man, so he can't really raise his voice that much anyway. So I respect the fact that he does try and communicate with me, but trust me, it's difficult sometimes. Like, he won't tell me if something he's doing on the farm. He won't tell me this needs to be done and then this needs to be done. He'll just point and go like, oh, and expect me to know what it is. And that's the case with a lot of Japanese men. You know, I work in construction as well, and a lot of these Japanese men and construction workers, they don't teach on the job. They don't realise that this new lad on the site, he is new. You know, he doesn't have the experience like they do for the past 20 years. But they don't teach. They just expect you to pick up things on the job, and that's quite a difficult thing about working in Japan. You know, everywhere on YouTube you'll find shit about the Japanese work culture. You got to work all these hours. You got to work unpaid overtime. You got to go to nomikai parties. And I'm sure that's the case for a lot of office jobs in the city, but I don't live in the city. I live in the countryside. I work with a very small team of construction workers, so we don't go nomikai. We don't have office politics and whatnot. But the struggle that I find with working in Japan is that you've got to be very, very patient. Okay, especially if you're a foreigner coming here and Japanese isn't your first language, you're going to have a hard time. For a good year, I reckon I had a hard time working because I wasn't proficient in the language well enough, and I didn't understand the system and how it all works, and I was inexperienced in the job, and I just had to learn it by watching most of the time. And I tell you what, if you're in a new situation, if you decided to change your life and move out to a new country and start a new job or whatever, it doesn't have to be in a new country, just a new position in your life where you're inexperienced and you're around people who can do the job well, questions are going to be your best friend. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I remember when I was in school, right? I was one of those kids who was always quiet in the classroom. Not always, you know, I'd be cheeky sometimes, you know, I'd be chatting with my friends if I would, but if I was ever struggling with the actual work itself, especially in college time, I would really be hesitant to put my hand up and ask for help. And that's, I don't know why, I think that's just something to do with pride or whatever. You don't want to show yourself to be struggling. And I understand that, but in the real world, people don't give a shit. People are happy to help, you know. They really are. Oh, there's a monkey up there. Alright, so I just realised that when I was filming that last section of the video, I saw a monkey and I wanted to turn the camera around to film the monkey, and in doing so I accidentally pressed the button on my phone which stopped it recording. And so I was just saying a little piece about when you move to a different country, or when you move to a different job, or when you just find yourself in a new position in life, it can be very daunting, and you can feel quite dumb, you know, if you're very inexperienced in something. If you're in a position that's completely new to you, you're gonna feel a little bit insecure, maybe. And you're going to feel like a kid again, especially if you're moving to a new country and you have to start speaking a new language, because, you know, you're not going to be proficient in it straight away. Not like the people around you will be. And that experience is just something that you're going to have to overcome yourself. And so don't be afraid to ask for help, okay? No matter what you are in life. That means practical skills. If you're somebody who's working, don't be afraid to just say, oh, do you know what? I'm actually struggling here. Can you just show me the ropes a little bit? People are happy to help. They really are. Yeah. Yeah, but you know, there's nothing wrong with asking for a little bit of support here and there. That's just something you have to get over, especially as a man. You know, men, we've got a lot of pride in us. You know, we don't like showing ourselves to be weak or, you know, to be incompetent in anything. But it's okay. You're allowed to ask for help in life, and that goes for work, and that also goes for, you know, shit going on in your head. You know, if you've got something going on, just, you know, tell someone about it, ring someone. You know, you don't always have to. If it's just one of those days where you're feeling a bit, you know, just a little bit deflated, that's okay. You know, everyone goes through those days. You can just take a day for yourself and whatever. Sometimes it's just a matter of thinking things through in your head and talking to yourself a little bit about it, and, you know, just realizing that you're gonna be okay. But yeah, that's basically my piece for today. You know, if you run into a problem like I did earlier, you know, getting a track off the excavator, you know, there's nothing wrong with asking for a little bit of support. Absolutely nothing. Okay. But yeah, look after yourself out there, and yeah, have a good day and week and month and year, and for the rest of your life, just, alright, signing out. Bye bye.